Hello and welcome to Steve's Backyard Bonsai. Today I'm going to be working on the Tanuki challenge, finally. I have some thuja trees that my mom planted. She just stuck sticks in the ground and they all grew. I have a whole bunch of them, but I brought one pot into the greenhouse to thaw out. It's about 5 degrees Celsius today, or just about 35, 36 degrees outside, but it's about 70 degrees in the greenhouse. Very comfortable in here. I have one of the windows open and I think the roof vents might open today as well. It's a real sunny day, the first time in a long time. But before I get started on the Tanuki challenge, I want to show you all some pictures of my MLK Valentine's Day cactus. It finally bloomed. I didn't have much hope that it would bloom after the amount of work that I did on it. The root pruning and the severe pruning I did on the outside of the tree. I put it in a plastic cascade pot and they've grown beautifully. You can see from the pictures that the flowers are still opening. The two that have opened fully are just spectacular and totally different than any other cactus, Christmas cactus, Thanksgiving cactus that I've ever seen before. They have green with beautiful red edges on the leaves, and the flowers themselves are absolutely spectacular. All right, let's get going. With my true blue trusty canine companion in my greenhouse with a comfortable temperature, what I have to do is pick a pot, which I've done. This is a cheap as can be plastic pot. You can see the casting marks are very, very crude. The mistake in these pots, and please don't make this mistake yourself, is that these feet will collect water and bacteria will grow and it will be an ugly mess. So what I do is I drill out 2 corners with a small gauge drill bit, and that will allow the water to drain. It also has drainage holes up top, and I'll be using a very, very well draining soil. All right, so this is stepped. I'm just going to go to the lowest part of the step and drill through here, here, and all the way around. And now the bottom of those feet have holes in them, and any water that collects should be able to drain out those holes. All right, let me get a screen in the bottom of this and a base layer of soil. Then I'm going to put it aside and look at the trees. Actually, not a base layer of soil, a drainage layer. All right, I got some screens in the bottom of the pot, and I'm just going to put in a drainage layer of pumice. I'm going to let it fill up those footholes. It's going to hold the screens in place. And just act as a drainage to ensure good drainage, because this Tanuki will be in this pot until it's established. Now, my ideas on Tanuki are that this isn't really going to be one. I think a Tanuki should look like, or the ones that I like, look like the tree has long suffered. It's lost most of its original formation. And what's alive is alive. What's dead is what you see as deadwood of the same tree. I don't think this will ever look that way. It will look more like this grew up alongside this piece of driftwood that I had and maybe fused to it. So In a classical Tanuki sense, I don't think this will be that, but it's going to be my first try. I had the wood, I got the trees. Let me give it a shot. And a shout out to Andy from Bonsai Crazy. He's the one that put out the Tanuki challenge, and I'm glad he did. Sorry it's taken so long. So we'll put this aside for the moment and we'll move on to the trees. Okay, I dug these out of the ground around December of 2020 when my mom sold her house. We hadn't, well, when she moved out, we hadn't closed on the house yet. And just before we closed, I dug these out of the ground. These were cuttings off of some of our landscape trees when I was growing up, and my mother would just go out and pick the cuttings that my dad put out on the street, drag them back in, stick them in the ground, and sometimes they'd grow. Well, this is a neat grouping. I like this grouping, and it's going to be a really terrific thing on this Tanuki. The Tanuki maybe not so much, but the concept and the execution, I think I can really pull it off with these trees. All right, let's get them out of the pot and see what they look like. All right, this has been outside until this morning, and we've had some pretty wet weather up until today, so this might be a little wet. Oh, and it's full of roots. I do like that. I do like that. All right, I'm going to get to work on these roots. I'm going to be using my round-tined root rake, which I love, Canishin, and a rosewood chopstick from Chinatown. Decided to put on gloves to just scrape away a little from the top before I go in fast motion. This is always pretty exciting. And sometimes when it's been a while in the pot, it's quite tedious. So that's how this is going to be. I may be cutting some of these top roots or the higher up roots off. Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't recommend doing it when it's this wet, but I got a bit of sun. I love being in the greenhouse, so I thought this would be a good project for now. I do have some little more thought out projects coming up in the spring, but this should be fun. I want to see what I make of it. And you know, it's funny, I'm recognizing the soil from my parents' house when I was growing up. It's really unusual. It's very sandy. Long Island tends to be sandy once you dig down past the topsoil. And this development that they were in, you know, in the early 1960s, people were moving out of the cities and Long Island was a great place to go. My dad was still commuting. I think he used to drive in. He took the railroad sometimes, but he used to drive in to the city. And on the weekends, he would trim the bushes, haul everything out to the street to be picked up, and my mother would, the next day, or that day, take pieces back and plant them. And she'll be 98 this year, and she's still doing it. I know I've told this story before, but if this is the first time you're tuning into me and you're hearing some of the history of these trees, A, I appreciate you tuning in. Tell your friends. And B, that's how I got these trees. And I got a lot more than these sitting outside. But these are nicely bent. That airplane is telling me, hey, why don't you go into fast motion? No one will hear me. All right, my concept all along as I've been thinking about this has been that these would be separate trees. I'm going to try and do that as much as possible. It may end up being a grouping, two groupings of multiple trees. So I want to try and get these apart. And the only way I'm going to do that is to know exactly what's here. So I am in effect bare rooting these Long Island garden soil trees that were dug up hastily and put in pots in December. And it was a cold December, if I remember it well. So I don't really recall. I know there were multiple trees in the pots, and this definitely is multiple trees. Yeah. I'm going to yank a little bit, and I'll be doing a little bit of pruning. So I can't say that I'm unpleasantly surprised at what I'm seeing. How cool is that? All right. I'm going to wash these roots off, clean this up, and come on back to you. Here is the driftwood that I'm using for this Tanuki. It's small in comparison, but there are some places where I can get this tree to nest in there so beautifully. I hope you're seeing that. And maybe this one as well, or this one can go around and come up this way. No matter what, this is not going to look like a tree, that this is a dead part of this tree. Oh, that is nice. That is nice. I'm also not planning on securing the Tanuki wood to the pot. I'm going to plant the trees firmly, and the firmly planted trees will secure this. I'm not even sure I'm going to cut that much of the roots off. All right, I'm getting excited. Let me wash these roots off and I'll be back. All right, so let's get to these roots. They're really kind of cool, but some of them are a little high. The real root base on this tree is right down here. There's a taproot that I'll deal with, but I want to get rid of these high roots. It's a shame, they're beautiful. My fault for burying it in the pot so deeply. This one I'm going to use like it wants to be used, with a little radial root base of its own. If I can arrange it that way. Continue cutting these away. These little roots that I know I'm not going to need. We've got some roots that are unruly and want to grow in an upward direction. I'm going to cut those out. All right, so I think I do want some long lengths here, but not this long. And this. All right, this root bends around. It divides right here. I'm going to cut it at the division. All right, I think that's enough. That's enough for this tree. We'll look at the top, giving it its own right. Okay, here I've got roots high up that I'm not going to need. They're a little weird. I hate cutting roots, but when they're weird, go with your first instinct. All right. I'm trying to imagine this grouping on my driftwood. I'm having a little bit of a tough time. So there's going to be a thought session, which I hope you'll join me on. I may not get to the answers that you're yelling out at me, but hopefully I've thought it through to the same extent. All of this, you can see there's 2 layers of roots here, and the real root base of this whole mess is down here. There's a bit of a taproot there, which I'll get. I'm repeating myself, but I think I have to cut off all of that. Okay, sorry Mom. She cringes when I do this. I go to her assisted living and I show her my videos, and she's so proud of me, but she says, "So what did you do with the stuff you cut off?" I put it in the compost. "Well, you should put it in the ground because you never know what'll grow." I said, "I know, Mom, I know. You're right. But I can't put everything in the ground." Anyway, 98 years old this year. I'm dedicating this video to my mom, who's going to be 98 in May. And maybe I will throw some of these roots in the ground, Mom. You never know. I'll bring them over for your windowsill. How's that? Then it isn't me who killed them. Okay. I think, oh no, I got to get that taproot. I'm not going to get it all. I'm going to get some of it. For that, I'll be using my branch cutter, but not my good branch cutter. The one that needs sharpening and some attention. There's a lot of roots coming off, but there's still a lot of roots there. And I think this has the possibility to be a nice root base. So this, I mean, I definitely want this to be seen. So, all right, let's figure out how it all goes in that pot. Obviously, I haven't figured that out yet. All right, so this is kind of, I don't know, it's coming together like kismet. All right, I want this up the back, and I want this here on this side, and I want to flatten this to here, I want to flatten this to here, and I want to secure it somewhat, and I'm not sure how to secure it. So I think I'm going to use vet tape. Awkward, very awkward. I don't know that I'll be able to get the points of attachment to work properly with vet tape. I want this very tight. Seems to be working. I thought about doing one at a time, and then I said, then I'll be having vet tape under other vet tape. Oh, I wanted to tell you a story. I have gotten myself a new composter, you know, for kitchen waste. And it's pretty good. I built a little platform for it outside, and, you know, because I didn't want the water dripping out of it to stain the concrete that I put there. I put a cement mixing tub underneath it to catch the water. All right. So then I thought, ooh, I could have a good use for that water. I could water my trees with it, and it would be really good for them because of the nutrients, which might actually be true. All right, I'm going to get another bit of vet tape around here. I didn't prepare any channels in this wood. And that was on purpose. I see I'm going to have to cut some branches. You know, that was on purpose. I just wanted to utilize the wood as is. This is a challenge. All right, I'm going to do it right there. Anyway, so I collected this water under my compost, and I just was using it for the first time to rinse these roots off. And does it smell putrid? So I'm not going to be doing that again. All right, this is going to be a monumental waste of vet tape. But it's doing what I wanted it to do. And I'm getting it to pull down pretty hard. All right. I'm gonna have to get another roll, which I have in the house. Anyway, so while it might be nutritious to use your compost water, or maybe it's not nutritious and I just made that up. All right, I'm going to cut those 2 little branches off. It stinks to high heaven, so don't bring it into the house to water your tropicals. All right, so there are, I want to keep these roots moist at all times. All right, so there's 2 parts of my Tanuki. So I'm not sure how to keep that so that you could see these roots. Maybe I have a little bit of a hill or something going down a hill. I don't know. This is going to be fun. I'm glad I had the size pot that I have too. All right, so what do I do with these trees now? Let me think about it and I'll come back to you. All right. See, I don't know. I thought this would be a good way to incorporate, well, maybe like that, to incorporate that other tree. But I've got these roots now being buried very deeply in this pot. So I'm going to have to mound this whole thing up. I don't think I have to secure this tree to the driftwood. I will have to do some pruning, obviously, but I think I'm done pruning the roots. All right, let me get some soil in the pot and start positioning these. All right, the soil I'm using this year is my new mix. It's got some black lava in it. It has pumice in it. It has akadama and turfus in it. I'm wearing a mask. And it also, I'm debuting this year, it has a little fir bark, because that's all I had left, but I had a yew tree that was shedding bark like crazy this year. So I harvested the bark from my yew tree and I'm using it in here. It's not composted, but it is going to be my soil mix this year. I've roughly thought in my head how I want to position the tree. It's going to require some wiring and some pruning at the top. Especially the piece that hangs off the bowl on this side, with the pot on that side. It's going to be an unusual planting. All right. The whole thing hinges for me on how I can place these straight trees behind. All right, I'm going to do my best to spread out the roots. Gotta get a lot more soil in the back. This is always a challenge. Once I start working this soil in with my chopstick, everything will be a lot sturdier. I don't like that at all. I don't like that at all.